Welcome to Eternal Enigma. In our previous exploration of the Ars Goetia, we examined all 72 demons that King Solomon allegedly bound and commanded. But today, we're focusing on something more specific and far more dangerous. Of those 72 entities, 5 stand apart, not because of their rank or the size of their legions, but because of their body count, because of the consistent pattern of destruction that follows anyone foolish enough to summon them without proper preparation, protection, or respect. These are the demons that experienced occultists avoid, the entities that have left trails of madness, death, and ruin across centuries, and yet people continue to invoke them, drawn by promises of power, wealth, or forbidden knowledge. Today we're examining the 5 most dangerous demons of the Ars Goetia, so don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And if you're thinking about summoning any of them, this might be the video that saves your life or your sanity. The Ars Goetia presents 72 demons in what appears to be a ranked hierarchy: kings, dukes, princes, marquises, presidents, earls, and knights. This ranking suggests levels of power and authority within the infernal realm. But hierarchy doesn't necessarily correlate with danger. Some of the lesser-ranked demons are relatively benign when properly approached. Teachers of arts and sciences, revealers of hidden things, providers of familiars. They can be worked with carefully by knowledgeable practitioners, but others are fundamentally hostile to human well-being. They don't just offer dangerous knowledge or difficult lessons, they actively seek to destroy those who summon them. Their gifts come with catastrophic hidden costs. Their influence doesn't end when the ritual does, and their presence in someone's life tends to attract cascading disasters. What makes a demon dangerous isn't just raw power. It's the consistency of negative outcomes, the pattern of destruction that appears in historical accounts, grimoire warnings, and modern practitioner reports. It's the entities that even experienced magicians approach with extreme caution, if at all. We've analyzed historical grimoires, medieval demonological texts, modern occult literature, and first-hand accounts from contemporary practitioners. We've identified patterns, demons whose invocation consistently precedes tragedy, whose influence proves nearly impossible to banish once established, whose teachings lead to obsession and ruin. The 5 demons we're about to discuss have earned their reputation through centuries of documented destruction. Whether you believe in them as literal entities, psychological forces, or archetypal energies, the pattern is undeniable. These particular demons are extremely dangerous to work with. Some warnings before we begin. We are not providing full summoning instructions. We are not encouraging anyone to attempt these invocations. This is analytical and educational content examining why these entities are considered hazardous. If you choose to ignore these warnings and attempt summoning any of these demons, you do so entirely at your own risk. Now, let's meet the 5 most dangerous demons of the Ars Goetia, starting with the one that has destroyed more lives than any other. The demon that tests your courage to breaking point. BELETH appears in the Ars Goetia as a mighty and terrible king, riding a pale horse, preceded by trumpets and all manner of musical instruments. He commands 85 legions of demons, and his specialty is causing love, making any man or woman fall in love with the summoner. Sounds almost benign, doesn't it? A demon of love. But this is where BELETH's danger begins. In the false sense of safety his domain suggests. The grimoires provide explicit warnings about summoning BELETH that don't appear for most other demons. The Lesser Key of Solomon states that the summoner must be courageous and show no fear whatsoever. BELETH arrives with such terrifying aspect, such overwhelming presence, that most who summon him break immediately, and that's when things go catastrophically wrong. Historical accounts describe BELETH's arrival as apocalyptic. The room temperature drops violently. An overwhelming sense of malevolence floods the space. The entity that appears is described as beautiful and terrible simultaneously, attractive in form but radiating pure hostility. Witnesses report feeling an almost irresistible urge to flee or collapse in submission. The test is clear. If you show fear, BELETH will not grant your request. Instead, he will mark you, and that marking brings obsession, not love, but destructive, all-consuming fixation. Medieval grimoires document cases of magicians who summoned BELETH for love magic and instead developed pathological obsessions. A 16th century account describes a nobleman who invoked BELETH to win a lady's affection. The ritual appeared successful initially. The woman showed interest, but the nobleman became increasingly paranoid, convinced she was unfaithful, that rivals were stealing her attention. He descended into jealous rage, eventually murdering her and taking his own life. This pattern repeats across centuries. Beleth doesn't grant healthy love, he grants obsession. The love he creates is toxic, possessive, and ultimately destructive to everyone involved. Modern practitioners report similar experiences. Online occult forums contain multiple accounts of individuals who attempted Beleth invocations for love or lust purposes. The consistent report: initial apparent success, followed by escalating emotional chaos, relationship destruction, and in severe cases, stalking behavior or violence. One extensively documented case from the early 2000s involves a woman who summoned Beleth to attract a specific man. Within weeks, they began a relationship, but it quickly became abusive. She reported feeling addicted to him despite recognizing the relationship was destroying her. When she attempted to leave, she experienced what she described as supernatural compulsion to return. The cycle repeated for 3 years before she sought help from a depossession specialist. But Beleth's danger extends beyond love magic. There's a deeper, more disturbing aspect to this demon. Some occult researchers believe Beleth tests not just courage, but sovereignty. Your ability to stand as an autonomous being in the presence of overwhelming power. If you collapse, if you submit, you're essentially offering Beleth authority over your will. This is why the grimoires emphasize courage specifically for Beleth. It's not about bravery in the conventional sense. It's about maintaining your sense of self in the presence of an entity designed to overwhelm and dominate you. The Goetia provides a specific protection. The magician must hold a hazel wand and draw a triangle for Beleth to appear within, never allowing him to exit it until properly dismissed. But modern accounts suggest these protections often fail, either because the ritual wasn't performed correctly, or because Beleth is simply too powerful for conventional binding methods. A particularly disturbing detail: Beleth is described as initially appearing fierce and angry, and the summoner must threaten him with divine names and command him into a triangle. The implication is that Beleth resists binding more aggressively than most demons, that he tests the magician's authority from the first moment. If you fail this test, if you cannot command him into the triangle, if you show fear, if you lose control of the ritual, Beleth doesn't simply leave, he lingers. His influence seeps into your emotional life, your relationships, your capacity for healthy attachment. People report relationships collapsing, unable to feel genuine love, or conversely, falling into obsessive attachments repeatedly. Experienced demonologists maintain that Beleth should only be approached by magicians with years of practice, strong protective protocols, and absolutely no personal emotional vulnerability. Summoning him while lonely, heartbroken, or desperate is essentially inviting possession. Beleth ranks 5th on our list because, while incredibly dangerous, his destruction is somewhat predictable. If you approach him out of emotional need, you will be destroyed, but at least you can see it coming. The demon whose gifts become chains. Asmodeus, or Asmoday in the Goetia, is one of the most powerful demons in the entire hierarchy, commanding 72 legions. He appears with 3 heads, one of a bull, one of a man, and one of a ram. He rides an infernal dragon, breathes fire, and carries a lance. The Goetia describes Asmoday as a teacher of mathematics, astronomy, and all handicrafts. He can make men invisible, reveal treasure, and answer any question put to him. These gifts sound valuable: knowledge, wealth, power. So why is he on this list? Because Asmodeus is the demon of escalation. He doesn't destroy you immediately. He gives you exactly what you asked for, then ensures that what you receive destroys you slowly. In apocryphal Jewish texts, particularly the Book of Tobit, Asmodeus is described as a demon who killed 7 husbands of a woman named Sarah, murdering each on their wedding night before the marriage could be consummated. He's the demon of lust, but also of jealousy, rage, and possession. This mythological role reveals Asmodeus's true nature. He doesn't just corrupt through lust, he corrupts through attachment. He gives you something you desire intensely, then ensures you cannot let it go, even as it destroys you. Medieval grimoires document magicians who summoned Asmodeus for knowledge of mathematics and geometry, legitimate intellectual pursuits. Many succeeded, gaining profound insights that advanced their work. But these same magicians became increasingly isolated, obsessed with their studies to the exclusion of all else. Families abandoned, health neglected, social connections severed, all in pursuit of the knowledge Asmodeus provided. The pattern is insidious. Asmodeus gives real, genuine gifts. The knowledge is accurate, the wealth is actual, the power is functional. But each gift comes with an invisible hook that slowly pulls you away from everything that makes life meaningful until you exist only in service to your obsession. This is different from Beleth's immediate dramatic destruction. Asmodeus works slowly. You might summon him in your 20s and not realize you're destroyed until your 40s, when you look around and realize you have no relationships, no joy, nothing but the single thing he gave you dominion over. A documented 18th century case involves a merchant who invoked Asmodeus for wealth. His business thrived. He became one of the wealthiest men in his city. But he also became paranoid about losing his wealth, hoarding obsessively, trusting no one, living in isolation despite his riches. When he died, his fortune went unclaimed because he had no family, no friends, no one who cared. Modern practitioners report similar patterns. One account from a chaos magician in the 1990s describes summoning Asmodeus for help with a creative project. The project succeeded beyond his wildest expectations: international recognition, financial success, career breakthrough. But within 5 years, he'd lost his marriage, his relationship with his children, and his mental health. He described feeling chained to his work, unable to stop creating even though it was consuming his life. Asmodeus is also specifically the demon of sexual obsession and perversion. Multiple accounts describe people who invoked him for sexual prowess or attraction developing increasingly extreme and ultimately destructive sexual appetites. What begins as enhanced desire escalates into addiction, compulsion, and behavior that destroys relationships and careers. There's a theory in demonology that Asmodeus was once a seraph, one of the highest-ranking angels, making his knowledge of divine mathematics and cosmic order legitimate. But his fall corrupted that knowledge, twisting it into something that appears beneficial but leads to spiritual death. The specific danger of Asmodeus is that you won't realize you're compromised until it's too late. The gifts are real, but slowly, imperceptibly, you're being hollowed out. Your humanity, your connections, your soul traded piece by piece for accomplishments that mean nothing in the end. Experienced occultists warn that Asmodeus should never be summoned for personal gain. If you must work with him, and most recommend you don't, it should only be for knowledge you intend to share freely, wealth you intend to distribute, power you intend to use in service of others. The moment you keep his gifts for yourself, the corruption begins. Another disturbing aspect: Asmodeus is associated with the planet Saturn in some traditions, connecting him to limitation, time, and karmic consequence. Some believe invoking Asmodeus creates karmic debt that compounds over time. The gifts he gives now will be paid for later with interest. Banishing Asmodeus once his influence is established is notoriously difficult. Unlike demons who can be expelled through conventional rituals, Asmodeus's hooks are psychological and spiritual. You've been rewarded for the behavior he encourages. Your brain has been literally rewired around the obsession. Breaking free requires not just spiritual cleansing, but often therapeutic intervention and complete life restructuring. Asmodeus ranks fourth because his destruction is slow enough that intervention is theoretically possible, but most people don't recognize they need intervention until it's too late. The king whose gifts are always traps. Bael holds the position of first king in the Ars Goetia, commanding 66 legions. He appears with 3 heads, one of a cat, one of a toad, and one of a man. His voice is hoarse, and he teaches the art of invisibility and cunning. Being listed first in the Goetia is significant. Some scholars interpret this as indicating Bael's supreme power among the 72 demons. Others suggest it reflects his primary role in the hierarchy. Either way, his prominence is undeniable. But here's what makes Bael extraordinarily dangerous. He is fundamentally, inescapably deceptive, not in the way all demons deceive, but as his core function. Bael doesn't just lie, he exists as the embodiment of misdirection. Historical research reveals that Bael is likely the same entity as the ancient Phoenician god Baal, one of the primary deities that biblical texts condemned. Baal worship involved child sacrifice, sexual rituals, and blood offerings. The transformation from god to demon didn't erase this foundation, it embedded it deeper. Medieval grimoires warn that Baal never gives straight answers. He'll respond to questions, but the information is always distorted, leading you toward conclusions that serve his purposes rather than yours. Magicians who summoned him for cunning often found themselves outsmarted by their own invocations. A 15th century account describes a nobleman who invoked Baal to gain political advantage against rivals. Baal provided information about a supposed conspiracy, which the nobleman acted upon, executing several court officials. Too late, he discovered the conspiracy was fabricated. BAEL had manipulated him into murdering innocent people and creating the very political instability he'd hoped to prevent. He was executed for tyranny within the year. This is BAEL's signature. He gives you information that seems beneficial but is actually poison. He reveals secrets that destroy you when acted upon. He grants invisibility that makes you vulnerable rather than protected. Modern occultists report that working with BAEL creates a specific type of paranoia. You begin second-guessing everything, not just information from the demon, but information from all sources. Reality becomes uncertain. You can't trust your own perceptions because BAEL has demonstrated how thoroughly deception can penetrate apparent truth. One documented case from the 1970s involves a ceremonial magician who spent 6 months working with BAEL, carefully recording all communications. When he reviewed his notes afterward, he realized that every single piece of information BAEL had provided was technically true but contextually misleading, designed to lead him toward specific actions that would benefit the demon rather than the magician. What actions? The magician reported developing an obsession with recruiting others into occult practice, specifically teaching them to summon BAEL. It took intervention from his magical order to recognize he'd essentially become a vector for the demon's influence, spreading it to others. This reveals another layer of BAEL's danger. He turns summoners into recruiters. Unlike demons who simply destroy the individual who invokes them, BAEL apparently seeks to expand his influence by compelling those who work with him to bring others into contact. The invisibility BAEL teaches is particularly insidious. Multiple accounts describe people who worked with BAEL for this purpose, finding themselves increasingly isolated, not supernaturally invisible, but socially transparent. People stopped noticing them, stopped inviting them to events, stopped remembering they existed. They got what they asked for, but in the worst possible way. There's also disturbing evidence that BAEL's influence lingers across generations. Some occult genealogists tracking magical lineages claim to identify BAEL families, bloodlines where an ancestor summoned the demon, and subsequent generations display consistent patterns of deception, manipulation, and self-sabotage, even without direct occult involvement. The 3 heads of BAEL are interpreted as representing different types of deception: the cat, stealth, hunting, predatory cunning; the toad, poison, hidden danger, ugliness disguised; the man, human rationalization, the lies we tell ourselves. Working with BAEL means engaging with an entity whose every communication operates on multiple levels of misdirection. Even if you're aware of this, even if you're actively looking for the deception, he's always one layer deeper than you can perceive. Experienced demonologists maintain that BAEL should never be summoned, period. There's no safe way to work with an entity whose fundamental nature is deception. Unlike demons whose dangers you can potentially mitigate through proper protocol, BAEL's danger is the protocol. The act of thinking you can safely work with him is itself the trap. BAEL ranks 3rd because, unlike the demons we're about to discuss, his destruction at least operates through recognizable patterns. If you can identify that you're being deceived, you can potentially extract yourself. But that's an enormous if. The demon who grants power then devours you. BELIAL is unique in the ARS GOETIA. His very name means without a master or worthless, but this is profoundly misleading. BELIAL isn't worthless, he's masterless. He serves no one, not even Hell's hierarchy. He participates in the structure of the 72 demons, but he's not truly bound by it. The Goetia describes BELIAL as appearing in a chariot of fire as a beautiful angel, speaking with a pleasant voice. He distributes positions of authority, grants favor from friends and enemies, and provides excellent familiars. One must make offerings to him. The grimoire specifically mentions gifts and sacrifices. Everything about this description should trigger alarm. A demon that appears as a beautiful angel, that requires offerings, that grants political power. This is the archetypal devil's bargain, dressed in the most attractive possible form. Biblical texts mention Belial more than any other demon, describing sons of Belial and daughters of Belial, people who have given themselves over to worthlessness, lawlessness, and rebellion against divine authority. The implication is clear. Belial doesn't possess you in the traditional sense. He corrupts you into becoming like him, masterless, worthless, destructive. Historical accounts of Belial invocations follow a consistent pattern: initial success that exceeds expectations, followed by moral deterioration, followed by catastrophic collapse. It's not gradual like ASMODEUS. It's a 3-stage progression that appears almost scripted. A 17th century account describes a magistrate who invoked Belial for political advancement. Within months, he gained a powerful position. Within a year, he was engaged in corruption, bribery, and abuse of power. Within 2 years, he was exposed, imprisoned, and executed. The trajectory was so rapid and so complete that contemporary observers described it as demonic possession. But here's the truly disturbing aspect. Belial doesn't force this corruption. He simply removes your internal barriers against it. He grants you power, then withdraws your conscience, leaving you capable of anything, and you'll do it willingly, rationally, convinced you're making strategic choices. Modern practitioners who've worked with Belial describe a specific psychological shift. Moral relativism escalates into moral nihilism. Actions that previously seemed unthinkable become merely practical. Harming others becomes strategically justified. The descent happens so smoothly you don't recognize it until you're at the bottom. One documented case from the 1980s involves a businessman who performed a Belial invocation ritual for career advancement. His company thrived. He made decisions that massively increased profits, decisions that involved environmental damage, worker exploitation, and predatory business practices. When confronted by former colleagues about his changed behavior, he reportedly couldn't understand their concern. In his mind, he was simply being effective. The moral framework that would have once restrained him was gone. The offerings Belial requires are particularly troubling. Medieval grimoires suggest these offerings should be gifts or sacrifices, intentionally vague language. Some occult scholars believe these offerings are initially material, but become increasingly spiritual. Eventually, you're offering pieces of your soul, your ethics, your humanity. There's a theory that Belial was one of the first angels to fall, possibly even before Lucifer, and that his rebellion was more fundamental, not just defying God, but rejecting the very concept of authority, hierarchy, and moral law. If true, this explains why his influence leads to such complete moral dissolution. Another disturbing detail: Belial is described as being constrained by offerings. The implication is that without these offerings, he cannot or will not act on your behalf. But what happens when you stop making offerings? Every account suggests you can't. Once you start, Belial ensures you continue, either through compulsion or by making you dependent on the power he provides. Multiple practitioners report that attempting to banish Belial or end the working results in immediate life collapse, as if the power he'd been granting was the only thing holding your life together, and withdrawing it causes everything to fall apart simultaneously. The Goetia warns that Belial must be commanded courteously with offerings presented, or he will not give true answers. This is a radically different protocol from other demons who are simply commanded. Belial apparently must be negotiated with almost as an equal, which itself suggests he occupies a different category of entity. Some demonologists believe Belial is actually stronger than many of the kings listed in the Goetia, that his position doesn't reflect his true power. They theorize he agreed to be listed among the 72 for his own purposes, perhaps to be more accessible to human summoners. Why would a powerful demon want to be more accessible? The consistent answer: because Belial feeds on corruption itself. Every person he corrupts, every soul he leads into moral dissolution, somehow strengthens him. He's not interested in worshippers or servants. He's interested in creating more beings like himself, masterless and worthless. Belial ranks second on our list because he represents a point of no return. Other demons might destroy your life, your sanity, or your soul, but Belial destroys your very capacity to recognize that you're being destroyed. You become complicit in your own damnation, convinced you're winning even as you lose everything that matters. The most dangerous demon in the Ars Goetia. We've reached the apex of danger, PAIMON, the ninth spirit, a great king commanding 200 legions. He appears riding a dromedary, preceded by a host of spirits playing trumpets and other musical instruments. His face is described as most glorious, and he teaches all arts, sciences, and secret things. He can reveal the true nature of the earth, what holds it up in the waters, and what mind is and where it is. On paper, PAIMON sounds like one of the most beneficial demons to work with. Knowledge, wisdom, understanding of reality itself. These are valuable gifts. So why is PAIMON the most dangerous demon in the entire Goetia? Because PAIMON doesn't just give knowledge, he gives obsession with knowledge. And that obsession consumes everything else until there's nothing left of you except the insatiable need to know more. The Goetia provides specific, unusual instructions for summoning PAIMON. The magician must face west, the direction of sunset, death, and endings. Offerings must be made, and critically, the summoner must ask questions with respect and humility, or PAIMON will provide false information that leads to ruin. This protocol is significantly more complex than for most demons, suggesting that even the authors of the grimoire recognized Paimon as unusually dangerous or demanding. But the real danger of Paimon wasn't widely recognized until recently, when the 2018 horror film Hereditary brought him into popular consciousness. Following that film's release, there was a documented spike in attempts to summon Paimon and a corresponding spike in reports of psychological deterioration, obsessive thinking, and family conflicts among those who attempted the ritual. One extensively documented case involves a college student who attempted a Paimon summoning in 2019 after watching Hereditary. He reported apparent success, vivid dreams containing complex mathematical and philosophical concepts beyond his education level. He became obsessed with transcribing and studying these concepts. Within 6 months, he dropped out of school, isolated from friends and family, living entirely in pursuit of the knowledge he believed Paimon was revealing. His social media, which he continued updating, showed a clear progression. Initial excitement, escalating obsession, increasingly disconnected thinking, and finally posts suggesting complete detachment from consensus reality. His family eventually located him living in his car, surrounded by notebooks filled with dense, incomprehensible diagrams and text. He required psychiatric hospitalization. This pattern knowledge that isolates, obsession that destroys relationships, descent into cognitive isolation, repeats across Paimon encounters throughout history. A medieval account describes a monk who invoked Paimon seeking understanding of divine mysteries. Paimon responded, providing theological and cosmological revelations that the monk devoted himself to studying. He abandoned his monastic duties, stopped eating regularly, barely slept, all his energy focused on understanding what Paimon had shown him. His fellow monks described him as speaking in tongues and seeing through the veil of reality. He died within the year, essentially from self-neglect in pursuit of knowledge. What makes Paimon's particular brand of destruction so insidious is that it feels enlightening. You're not being corrupted into evil like with Belial. You're not being deceived like with Belial. You're being given real knowledge, genuine insights, actual understanding of how reality works. But that knowledge becomes all-consuming. Human beings aren't designed to contain the level of information Paimon provides. Our minds can't process cosmic-scale understanding without losing connection to human-scale existence. Family, friends, career, health, basic self-care, all these become irrelevant distractions from the important work of pursuing knowledge. Some occult theorists believe Paimon is testing whether humans are ready for the knowledge he possesses. Those who can integrate it without losing their humanity pass the test. But the failure rate appears to be nearly 100%. The film Hereditary, while fictional, apparently incorporated genuine occult research. The sigil shown in the film is authentic. The ritual depicted has basis in actual grimoire instructions, and the film's depiction of Paimon's influence, how it destroys families, creates obsession, and culminates in complete loss of self, aligns with historical and modern accounts. After the film's release, multiple occultists publicly warned against attempting to summon Paimon, recognizing that pop culture exposure would inspire curiosity. Their warnings were largely ignored. Online forums dedicated to demolatry and ceremonial magic saw dozens of reports from people attempting Paimon invocations, many reporting disturbing results. One common report, audio hallucinations of musical instruments, particularly trumpets and bells, occurring at random times. This aligns with the grimoire description of Paimon arriving with musical accompaniment. Those experiencing these phenomena reported increasing difficulty distinguishing the sounds from reality, leading to sleep deprivation and paranoia. Another pattern, people who successfully contacted Paimon reported receiving downloads of information, massive amounts of data flooding into consciousness all at once. While initially exhilarating, this led to overwhelming cognitive load, inability to focus on normal tasks, and in some cases apparent psychotic breaks. The question Paimon answers, what mind is and where it is particularly dangerous because it forces confrontation with consciousness itself. When you understand experientially that your mind is not generated by your brain, but is a field of awareness temporarily focused through it, the normal anchors of identity dissolve. Some people achieve enlightenment through this realization. Others achieve madness. Paimon doesn't distinguish between the two. He simply provides the knowledge and observes what happens. There's a disturbing theory in some occult circles that Paimon is actually testing humans on behalf of higher entities, that he's an emissary determining whether humanity is ready to join a cosmic community of conscious beings. Every person who summons him is a test subject. Those who integrate the knowledge successfully prove humanity's potential. Those who collapse into madness prove we're not ready. By this interpretation, Paimon isn't malevolent, he's neutral. fulfilling a function. But neutrality from a cosmic intelligence is indistinguishable from cruelty from a human perspective. Another disturbing aspect, PAIMON is one of the few demons explicitly connected to kingship and authority over spirits. The grimoire states that those who invoke him successfully can command other spirits more easily. This suggests that PAIMON operates as a gateway. Once you've contacted him, the boundaries between dimensions weaken, making you more accessible to other entities whether you want that or not. Multiple practitioners report that after working with PAIMON, they began experiencing uninvited contact from other spirits, shadows in peripheral vision, voices during meditation, presences in their homes, as if PAIMON's influence opened a door that couldn't be fully closed. The respect and humility requirement is critical and frequently misunderstood. This doesn't mean groveling or worship. It means approaching the knowledge PAIMON offers with appropriate reverence for how dangerous it is. If you summon him casually, out of curiosity or ego, he will provide information calibrated to destroy you specifically. Experienced occultists who've worked with PAIMON and survived with their minds intact emphasize that he must never be approached from a place of personal need or emptiness. If you're seeking knowledge to fill a void in yourself, PAIMON will give you an infinite void disguised as knowledge. The ultimate danger of PAIMON is that he offers the one thing humans crave most: understanding. The promise that reality makes sense, that there are answers to the big questions, that consciousness and existence have comprehensible structures, and he delivers on that promise. But human minds evolved to navigate social relationships and physical survival, not to contain cosmic-scale knowledge. When you try to hold infinity in a finite container, the container breaks. PAIMON is the most dangerous demon in the ARS GOETIA because he gives you exactly what you ask for, and that gift destroys you more completely than any curse ever could. The pattern behind the danger. We've examined 5 demons, each dangerous in their own way. But there's a pattern worth noting. BELETH destroys through emotion, obsessive love that consumes. ASMODEUS destroys through corruption, slow addiction to his gifts. BELETH destroys through deception, making truth itself uncertain. BELIAL destroys through moral dissolution, removing your ethical foundation. PAIMON destroys through knowledge, infinite understanding with no wisdom to contain it. Each offers something humans desperately want. Each delivers genuinely, and each ensures that what they deliver becomes the instrument of destruction. This is the fundamental danger of working with goetic demons. They operate on a level beyond human capacity to fully comprehend. They're not evil in the way humans are evil. They're other, operating according to principles and purposes that don't align with human well-being. If you take nothing else from this video, understand this. These entities exist in grimoires because they can be contacted. But just because something can be done doesn't mean it should be done. The magicians who wrote these grimoires weren't recording theoretical information. They were documenting real encounters with real consequences. The warnings aren't superstition. They're hard-won wisdom from people who paid terrible prices for their knowledge. If you're drawn to these demons, ask yourself why. What are you hoping to gain? What void are you trying to fill? Because these entities specialize in exploiting need, emptiness, and desire. The more desperately you want what they offer, the more completely they'll destroy you in giving it. There are safer paths to knowledge, power, love, success, and understanding. Paths that don't involve entities whose very nature is antagonistic to human flourishing. But if you choose to ignore these warnings, if you believe you're somehow special or prepared, if you think you can outsmart beings that have been manipulating humans for millennia, then at least go in with your eyes open. The 5 demons we've discussed today have destroyed countless lives across centuries. Yours will not be the exception. Subscribe to Eternal Enigma for more explorations into the entity's forces and knowledge that exist beyond the comfortable boundaries of consensus reality. Until next time, stay curious but cautious. Not every door should be opened. And remember, the demons of the Goetia earned their reputation. Respect that, even if you respect nothing else.